In this lesson, we're going to talk about solving absolute value equations. Now, we need to start by making sure we understand what absolute value actually means. Absolute value is a measure of the distance a number is from zero. Now, what that means is if you draw a number line, we put 0 there, and we talk about a 2 is clearly 1, 2 spaces away from 0. At the same time, if you talk about a -2, it is also 1, 2 spaces away from 0. So absolute value is always positive because it's a measure of distance. Now the next step is to talk about absolute value in equations. So we'll put the absolute value symbols around an x and say it's equal to 3. Now we just looked at this on the number line, so we know that absolute value is always positive. Well, this is a positive 3, so we know that actually makes sense. But the real trick is realizing that when the answer to the equation is 3, that means that x could have been 3 or it could have been -3. Remember, it's the distance a number is from 0 on the number line. And both 3 and -3 are 3 spaces away from 0. So it turns out for absolute value equations, we should always have 2 answers. Now we're going to look at a little bit more complicated equation. Now it's not just x inside the absolute value. But the same rule applies to this problem that worked for the other one. We're going to write down 2x plus 1 equals 5, because that's the positive outcome. But we also know that there's a negative outcome possible, so we're going to write or 2x plus 1 equals -5. Both positive 5 and -5 are 5 spaces away from 0, so they fill the requirements of our equation. Now we just have to solve each equation separately. -1 from both sides. We get 2x equals 4. We divide by 2, and we get x equals 2. On the other side, we'll repeat the same steps. We'll get 2x equals -6. We'll divide by 2, and we get x equals -3. Now at this point, it's just a matter of checking our work. We have to make sure both the 2 and the -3 work. So we take our 2 and plug it in. 2 times 2 is 4, 4 plus 1 is 5. And we get the absolute value of 5 equals 5, which we know is true. So 2 works. Now we also need to check our other answer. So we'll take that and plug that in. 2 times -3 is -6. -6 plus 1 is -5. -5. Inside the absolute value will become a 5, and that one works also. So we verified our answer. Now I'd also like to talk about one other example here. This is a special case. If we look here, it's a fairly simple equation. It's the absolute value of x plus 3 equals -2. Now, there should be a little alarm bells going off in your head. There's something funny about this. And the something funny is we're trying to tell you in this example that an absolute value equals a -2, which shouldn't make sense because we know absolute value is always equal to a positive. Basically, the absolute value of anything should always be greater than or equal to 0. And because in this case, we're trying to say that it is less than 0, that's not going to work. So for this particular example, or any problem you see like it, the answer is simply going to be no solution. It is impossible to ever have an absolute value that is equal to a negative number.